Eyes for Impact, a tool for participatory visualized assessment and planning for effective scripture impact, based on 6 I questions.
There are a number of approaches to scripture engagement strategizing which do a good job in highlighting the factors that must be taken into account for effective scripture impact, such as Wayne Dye's 8 Conditions for Scripture Engagement or SIL's Scripture Engagement Guides. However, in my experience, most of these models do not provide a great deal of practical help to decision makers operating under time pressure with limited experience and limited resources. Such guides provide an overview over the many factors that need considering, but as a result, they tend to help with what or why questions, but the how question remains highly elusive. As a result, only a small percentage of decision makers actually have the time or ability to apply such guides to the concrete ministry needs that they face. This is where Eyes for Impact comes in. Eyes for Impact is a planning and prioritization tool that uses 6 questions to assess and plan activities to ensure that maximum engagement takes place. It allows busy decision makers with limited experience or knowledge to assess and plan activities and content based on the input of team members and end users using an oral process. Each of the 6 questions starts with I, and together these 6 I questions cover the most foundational factors for effective impact.
In today's Eyes for Impact lesson, we're going to look at the 2 questions Identify with the content and Integrate into media habits. Both of these 2 questions are to do with the more technical aspects of communication design, but they start the reflection process at polar opposite sides. Let's start with the question Identify with the content. This question looks at the product design, meaning a product has already been chosen but needs to be designed well in order to attract the end users. Regardless of whether the product or content is presented in book form or as audiovisual content, and whatever purpose it may serve, we must ask ourselves content design questions about the product to assess how attractive a given content currently is, if we're assessing the product, or how to plan the product to make it more attractive. This includes questions like language choices, whether to include images, audio, or text, what type of image can be used, what orthography and font styles or sizes are appropriate, what design to use in terms of product dimensions, colors, or file sizes, what religious factors may shape the choice of content, what topics of daily life may make the content more appealing to end users. The Integrate into media habits question, on the other hand, looks at the media habits of end users to understand their current ways of using communication platforms. This includes questions like, does the target audience or any of its subgroups use face-to-face interaction, social media, radio, television, or a combination of these platforms? What social media platforms, radio, or television stations do they use? What times of the day or week do they use these platforms, and what type of program, content, or interaction are they drawn to? What is their motivation for using these media? Both the Identify with the content and Integrate into media habits questions include understanding the technical aspects of communication. However, it is important to note that the order in which these 2 questions are being answered matters a great deal. Christian ministry organizations often emphasize the creation of products such as Bible products or literacy materials for ministry in the assumption that churches and local Christians will make good use of such resources once they are available. However, this is often not the case. Also, we may think that with the spread and accessibility of technology, it has become easy to reach audiences, so we design products first and then look for technologies to distribute them. However, This approach is based on a faulty assumption. Research in media shows A. that due to media saturation, audiences are not likely to change their existing media habits just because some new written or audiovisual content has been made available, and B. that there is an increase in audience nichification, meaning that audiences are increasingly found in smaller audience groups in which they share very specific interests and media habits with a few others. As a result, it is highly important to start planning any communication strategy with the integrate into media habits question to understand the media platforms and habits of your audience so that you can then design products specifically for the media habits of your audience. To understand the difference between building your communication ministry on platforms versus building it on products, let's look at an example from aviation. Imagine you recruit only airplane engineers for your aviation program. They build your planes, repair and maintain them, and always make sure they are ready for takeoff. They could tell you precisely how each engine works and what it is able to do. Everything would always look great on paper. And you could keep costs pretty low as long as you get funding for building new airplanes and improving them and maintaining them. You would not even need to spend money on hiring pilots, airport fees, insurances, or fuel. The only problem would be that you would have no passengers and no way of knowing if your planes are suitable for your aviation program. Sadly, this is how many ministries run their media programs, with an emphasis on products and technology and very little investment into how that technology can be made useful through daily interaction with the end users. If you want your services to be of use, you will want to take an approach that is built on your customers' needs and habits. You will need to get to know your passengers' favorite destinations and travel times, identify the right planes for the job, and hire pilots that can accompany the passengers through conversations about things that interest the passengers, such as where they are going and why, safety in the air, and so forth. You would not want your pilots to talk at your passengers the whole way about the airplane's electrical or mechanical systems, but rather ensure you really get to know your passengers and that they get to know you and your love for them. This metaphor describes how building media ministries on the platforms that your audiences use in their regular media habits, be it radio, social media, television, or podcasting, to name just a few, can build the trust and authenticity that is needed to get conversations about God off the ground.
Here's an example. A team has published an Old Testament app which includes text, audio, and images in the Mambila language. To make the app accessible to the community, the team has uploaded the app to Google Play. However, before developing more apps for other languages, the team leader has invited his team, as well as a few Mambila speakers, to take part in an Eyes for Impact session to assess the approach, as well as to compare it with other approaches the team is considering as alternative or parallel ministry approaches to engage the community. To start with, each suggested product or activity is written down on a piece of paper and placed at the bottom of the framework. Making the process visual through note-taking is highly important, as it allows everyone to see how their input is shaping the decision-making process, including people who may be illiterate. Next, starting with a specific product or activity, the team discusses the 6 questions for this product or activity, taking notes along the way. It is important to note here that for each question, the team has to agree on how many points between 0 and 2 are given for each impact question. In our example, The team first assesses how much the end users identify with the content or activity used for communication. This question seeks to assess the appeal and relevance of a given product or publication, taking into account things like language and learning preferences, visual communication, openness towards technology, religious interests and freedom, and relevance to daily life. In our example, the team discusses this question and notes down the following positive and negative points. The community prefers orality-based learning, so the audio format in the app is deemed highly appropriate. Also, the text in the app is considered to have some positive impact despite low literacy levels among end users. Seeing digital content in their own language can overcome an overly negative perception of one's language and culture, especially among youth who love all things technology. And a small percentage of women may be motivated to use the app to learn to read. However, the Mambila speakers point out that some of the images used in the app are not clear to everyone. The community consists of mostly churchgoers, so there is quite a bit of openness towards the scriptures. On the negative side, it is hard for many to apply Bible stories to their own lives without additional help because of their limited Bible background knowledge. Overall, the team agrees to give 1 out of 2 points for how much end users can identify with the content. The team now discusses how well the product or activity is integrated into the media habits of end users. Ideally, if we were to plan a new activity and product for a target audience, we would start by researching the media habits of the target audience so that we can design a product and activity around the result. This is because we cannot expect people to change their media habits to make use of our content, especially if we do not create a significant amount of media content on a regular basis to satisfy the daily media consumption needs of our audience. In our case, however, the team is assessing an existing product, and so in some ways it is not surprising that the team ends up having to give the app 0 points for integrated into media habits. The Mambila community is based mostly in a rural area, and very few people actually have smartphones that are able to run the app, and even fewer people have the space on their phone or habit of installing apps from Google Play. Also, while youth do spend some money on mobile phone data, this is usually limited to buying credit specifically for WhatsApp or Facebook, the two commonly used platforms in which youth find social interaction, belonging, and role models. The older generation, however, are frequent radio users, with men listening to world news, debates, and sports news, and women enjoying the music offered by radio throughout the day, even during field work. At times, both men and women enjoy the occasional debate on a political or health-related topic, especially when there is room for interaction with others in the evening while sitting outside to cool off from a hot day.